World of capes and lunatics, gods and monsters, there are those who fight against the eternal void. And there are those who seek to unleash the void for the betterment of all. That is the question we face, and that is the answer for which we say, "Nuff said." Where we discuss the penultimate Take a Drink episode of Loki. Season 1, Episode 5, Journey into Mystery. I am your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is my skinny rich friend.
It's Maz.
Hey, Maz, welcome back. It's the penultimate episode of Loki, episode number 5, going into number 6, where all will be revealed, we hope. Big prediction. White Vision shows up at the end, and that was who was evil all along. White Vision was actually Miss Minutes. Big prediction, mark my words, said it here first. Okay.
So White Vision started the TVA?
Exactly. Well, because he's a robot, so he lives forever.
How interesting. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah. Because every time a part breaks, he just has to replace it. He just continues Shipathesian himself till the end of all time, and then he decides to create a timeline where it can all be made right to try and protect his dear lady love, Wanda, from unleashing a multiverse of madness. And it's all connected.
Oh, boy.
Yes. But yeah, so this is Season 1, Episode 5, Journey into Mystery, which is, of course, named after the original Thor comic book, which was a comic book before Thor, and every so often comes back as a Thor or Loki book. Loki tries to escape the void, a desolate purgatory, where he meets variant versions of himself. Kate Herron, of course, is our director. Tom Kaufman gets our writing credit this week, our written by credit for this episode. Michael Waldron, of course, gets our created by. And Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, and Larry Lieber get our Loki created by credits. I am wondering, and this is just a weird thing, I have to go back and double check this. I'm wondering if Larry Lieber, was the actual artist on the Venus issue that is considered like Loki's first appearance. I don't know, but now I'm wondering if that's the case, and that's why they keep on crediting Larry Lieber as a co-creator of Loki, along with Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. Larry Lieber, for those who don't know, is Stan Lee's brother.
Oh.
Because Stan Lee's name is actually Stanley Lieber, and Larry Lieber was his son, was his brother, and both got into comic books, but Larry Lieber just did not feel the need to use a fancy name.
Interesting.
Yes. Anyway, getting back to the story at hand, as you will recall last week, we ended with Loki waking up to face Loki's four. Boastful Loki, young Loki, classic Loki, and what is either Croaky or Loki Gator, depending on your conversation, and that's the debate we often had last week. Yeah. As I said, they're all crocodiliads, so Croaky is appropriate.
I just think Gator Loki sounds cooler.
Yeah, well, I like Loki Gator myself, but Croaky it fits nicely. It's just that one letter change, and apparently there is a photo out there of Sir Anthony Hopkins holding a baby alligator that is just lighting up the internet right now. And it's been restylized and redone, and I don't know the actual reason why Sir Anthony Hopkins was holding a baby alligator, but we're glad he did.
If I ever got the chance to hold a baby alligator, I would take it.
Well, yeah, who wouldn't? It's a baby alligator. They're cute and delightful.
Yeah. Baby dinosaurs, I'd pretend I was, in Jurassic Park when the little raptors are born.
Yes, and of course, we do again have our parallel stories with Sylvie, back in the TVA, sort of trying to manipulate Renslayer into, because Renslayer says, go ahead, do it, when Sylvie's got the drop on her, but she's like, no, I want you to tell me everything. They go and get Ms. Minutes to access all the restricted files, and she's just like looking through, and you get the idea, especially when Ms. Minutes throws out, because that's when Renslayer tells her, Loki's still alive. Because when we prune something, it doesn't die. It just goes to this place at the end of time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'll die eventually.
Well, it'll get eaten by Goliath.
Yeah.
Which, for the longest time, I was hearing as Goliath, but it's actually Goliath, who is a character in Marvel continuity who basically is the, I guess you might call it like the Galactus of time.
Right.
And they are like
he can eat entire dimensions.
Yeah, and he is like at the edge of Kang's empire, trying to destroy it, and Kang is like, in that kind of state of war with the Goliath being. And but in this case they kind of present it like Goliath is the guard of what is beyond the void. Ms. Minutes mentioned, yes.
Or whoever this is cleverly set up shop right behind it,
Yeah, well, there's lots of ways you can look at it, and that is, of course, the central question is what really is going on in this void. But we do see the Lokis, and they bring the new Loki in with them, which I also think it's very interesting that when Loki arrives, these 4 Loki are right there. Yeah. It makes you wonder, is there a place that Loki's arrive? How do Lokis know a new Loki's arriving?
I think so, because isn't there that moment where they point to, that's where it's going to appear later on. So there is like a central dumping ground where things first appear. That's the sense I got.
Yeah.
But as to what they were doing there, they tend to want to stay away from the Predator, right? They're of the mind, they've made up the mind that we're just going to stay here and survive. We don't need to mess with this Predator. We should stay away from it at all costs. Mm-hmm. And, later on we find out that there is a whole community of Lokis that have banded together against this little pack of Lokis. So for them to be that bold and be out there seems kind of, unless they are thinking of recruits for their side. They're like, hey, let's get to that fresh Loki first. And maybe that's why they were there.
Well, there's a lot of possibilities. One other idea is that when things get pruned, they come here. And so if you're looking for supplies, if you're looking for those pruned timelines, those boxes of Rock's Cart wine, your copy of Polybius, your own Thanos copter, your baby Throg. Although it does appear that, interestingly enough, that it was suggested that also the TVA is using this as a garbage dump. Because apparently all the trays, rather than clean them, they just throw them into the void. Which raises the question, where are they getting all the trays? Where are they getting the new trays? So it's a weird little infinite loop that they're creating there. I don't know quite what to make of it.
Yeah, but I guess they could go back to the same point in history somewhere in some gymnasium where they're having, kids' lunch and just steal those trays one day, and they just keep stealing from the same moment,
I guess that is a real possibility. But I found it interesting that all the people we see in this, with the exception of Mobius, who does show up in this, are all Lokis. Because we see other people have been pruned. What do you think? I mean, those other pruned beings, are they all just dead? Because they couldn't. I guess they all just died, because we do see, what was it, the USS Eldridge.
Eldridge.
Yes. Which is the legendary Philadelphia experiment ship, back when good old Howard Stark was trying to make a ship invisible, and succeeded to sending it to the void. Actually, the fact that the Eldridge
did he send it to the void, or did they break time by going somewhere they shouldn't have, and then the Time Variance Authority showed up and said, oh, whoa, that's technology you ought not to be messing with, and said, hey, come here.
That's an interesting question, and that's actually to me, that's one of the very interesting questions there. Did they get to the void because of the technology, maybe some Tesseract technology that Howard Stark was using on the Eldridge? Or did it get to the void because the TVA had to get rid of it? Had to send the whole ship into the void. I'm not sure, but it makes for a great scene because you also get that sense that, Alioth is not to be messed with, because you see them open up the battleship's guns on Alioth, which, is exploding within Alioth and presumably hitting something, but it does not slow down Alioth. So
no, because it's just matter that he's meant to eat anyways. If you got sent there, anything you're throwing at him is just food. Yeah.
So that is that, and I believe the Eldritch arrival coincides with Sylvie's arrival, who again doesn't arrive in the same place. She arrives in a bus, but close enough to where Mobius is for him to drive there. And it is interesting just how exactly what the logistics of this is.
I mean, it's a watering hole, so to speak, right? This little central. It's a watering hole, and all the animals congregate there, and that's where all the action is.
Here's an interesting question. Does the TVA really police all of time? Or does it mostly just police the Earth?
Oh.
Because that is this interesting question about, I mean, obviously they do things on other planets, because we see them doing them.
Right.
But you have to ask, is it because of things in this universe that affect Earth? Because
and if you're thinking from that perspective, then you got to think time is a local concept, right? So you can sort of artificially affect the time field of this area, let's say Earth, and not have it, have tremendous adverse effects to the rest of time.
Well, that's the idea, is that obviously whatever the sacred timeline is based on one place. Because that's the thing. It's not like they're preserving the histories of the Krees and the Skrulls and beings in galaxies that we've never even heard of. Really, it seems like, because there are still multiple variant universes.
Wow.
And it's only when these variant universes start to interact that it gets to be a problem. So, and this goes into, of course, the Kang theory. Because since Kang is a human from Earth, it is essential for Kang that Earth's timeline remain consistent. That Earth can't branch off and break away and do all these things. And now, why then are Lokis so problematic? And I guess the answer is because Lokis keep on coming to Earth. That there is a direct link between Midgard, or the planet Earth, and this point in Asgard, which is presumably a place of distance space, but also seems to be a place of dimensional space. Because we can see that you can fly to it.
A perspective of the cosmic oneness of the universe, if looked at like a human body, right? And somebody somewhere made the analogy that Lokis could be like the white blood cells of the universe, right? So they're created here, but then they are sent to their mission to go attack where the problem is. So of course they're going to come to Earth because that's where they're messing with.
Well, and that's where, that's where they shot the movie. So that's where, it's like, that's always the thing. It's like, why does everything happen on Earth? Well, it's because mostly Earthlings are making the movies. So we only really know what goes on here.
Right, but in that world, it's because we're important and because we're cool.
Well, of course we're important because to feed into the idea, it is this idea of the Gaia force of the universe being born of Earth. That this random planet actually is filled with this central, the Axis Mundi, if you will, which is actually the Axis Universum. And this idea is just the central point of the universe is this randomized planet where the goddess Gaia, who is the elder goddess of the force of life, sort of first comes into coalescence. And then, goes out from there. But it's an interesting question, and exactly how all these beings tie into each other is always very, very strange, interesting, and imaginative, especially when you try to work it back into a more mundane world. But here, what we're dealing with is just the fact that we are trying to get our Lokis through the void. Because really, at the end of it, whatever Renslayer is doing, whatever Miss Minutes is up to, it's all kind of secondary. Because we even see Renslayer go to, C-15, Hunter C-15 to, and she's like, why am I still here? And it's like, because, it's important and we gotta, Renslayer is up to something. And you see at the end of it, after she speaks to C-15, she asks for, again, the exact same files that they keep on asking for the entire episode. And now it's like, will Miss Minutes give those to Renslayer? Is Miss Minutes really the one in charge?
I don't know about that. She could just be like a plant and a spy that's supposed to have been there watching Renslayer all along just to make sure she's doing the right things. And now things have come to a head where she's like, hey, boss, I'm undercover, but, they're going to make me do this, and I can't do that. We got to, that's what it's coming to.
Well, there is another theory, and this was a neat theory I heard recently, which is the idea that Miss Minutes is that which remains. And that actually what the TVA is, it is just this AI that was built to maintain this timeline, but that the ones who built it have long since gone. And that's why it's all just robots and androids and everything just sort of clicking and whirring like an old cuckoo clock to emulate life, to simulate life. But in the end, it is still just a program. And then when we get to that castle at the end, who's in the castle, is the question. Now, obviously, the obvious answer is it was Kang. But, everyone was it was Mephisto all along so much that even though there was so much evidence for it to be Kang at this point,
right?
No one everyone who was like, well, of course, there's no reason for them to put this character and that character in here unless it is Kang. But we got so burned by Mephisto, which arguably we were basing it on so much less, and just stated that we wanted Mephisto.
Right. I think that was more of that than having actual evidence to suggest things. It's just that there was so much to sift through, and it was so wild. They're like, anything's on the table.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think this definitely should be Kang.
It should be, or some variation on the theme. And that's the other aspect. It could be Immortus. It could be Rama Tut. It could be one of the many other variants of Kang, including Iron Lad. One interesting theory I heard was that when they get to the end, it might actually be Classic Loki. That Classic Loki is he who remained.
Oh.
That he basically stayed on that planet and was just the last thing in the universe.
So he wants to kill all the other Lokis because he wants to be the main Loki.
Arguably, that's one theory. I mean, it's a fun theory.
I think that would be the most fun.
Yeah, honestly, although what's his name? Edward Grant, I believe. The actor is he's already pitching the classic Loki Croaky buddy cop series he wants to star in. So
that would be fun.
Yeah, he obviously had a lot of fun playing the role, and I hope it's not the last we've seen of him. I hope we get these like I said, I want all these characters back. I even want good old President Hookhand Loki back too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I mean, like he already played that trick once, where he fooled Thanos into thinking it was him. So it's entirely possible. That,
he tricked a smoke dragon,
50 yards away, and he's totally fine.
And people pointed out that there's some debris that seems to be floating as they're going into the castle place. So maybe he's just pulling that same old trick, and he's going in there too, and he's going to show up in the last minute and be the cavalry. Anything's possible. Yeah. Well, he might not be the bad. He might be the big good, because that's the whole idea, is that the Lokis. Because that is one of the ideas here, is that when when President Loki and the Loki army arrives. And
Mm-hmm.
it turns out that boastful Loki has betrayed them so that he could be king. Then President Loki says, but of course, that's not, I'm changing the plans. But then all the other Lokis turn on President Loki. And you realize that they just always go to betrayal.
Right. It's just the natural state of things.
Although, again, that is one of these moments when classic Loki is mad. Because it's like, and again, classic Loki is the one who is the true mage, who is the sorcerer supreme kind of guy. He's the one that can open portals and walk through them and create perfect duplicates and all these things that you need to be a truly great Loki. And he is, saying there, anytime, that he's mad that that's all Lokis do is betray. And he's like, and he's mad that, we can never, anytime we try to step outside of our roles, the TVA comes to prune us. Which is one of these reasons to make you think that he's not he who remains. But then again, as Mobius says with regards to Croaky, or Loki Gator, or Alligator Loki, maybe it's just a long con, and what is more Loki than that, Because Mobius makes the point he doesn't remember Croaky.
Who doesn't remember Croaky?
Mobius. He doesn't remember an alligator Loki.
Oh.
Which again goes to the holes in Mobius's memories.
Other Mobiuses that caught that particular trophy.
Yeah. Or someone else, because we do see that, as we saw, Renslayer started as a... Sorry.
I think what classic Loki realizes is they keep saying that, what is the defining characteristic of Lokis? It's not that they're meant to lose, but that they always survive. They never die, right? And they keep going on and on. Each one of them has like this faux concept of glorious purpose. But they don't really understand what it is, because when a push comes to shove, they're not willing to commit all of themselves to anything. And that's what he realizes. Being old Loki, that's the perspective he's able to gain, and sits there and goes, hey, this could actually accomplish something. My sacrifice would be worth something. So it's the act of negating what we're traditionally known to do, is to always survive and to give yourself to something. And that's the actual, realization of the concept of glorious purpose. And he finally finds it. And that's the only way that Lokis can do some good, is if they give all of themselves to it. And that's what they're all afraid to do.
Yes. Other than that gets negated if he actually does survive. Unless he survives, because it's possible that much like being pruned, being devoured by Alioth isn't the death sentence it seems.
Right, but you know how, like, at the end of, like, Constantine or something, when Constantine sacrifices himself, then the devil's like, nuts, now I gotta let you go. Like, he didn't know it, but that's what he had to do to be let go, You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that kind of thing, like, there has to be honor in it, so he has to give of himself, honestly, without knowing, but once he does, you get to come back, come on now,
Well, and
I'm with that, too.
To be fair, there are people in the MCU and other places that have been eaten by dragons and came out the other side. And, in fact, I forget, there's one character who, like, it's a DC character. I think it's Catman, was eaten by a gorilla and then comes back. It's weird. But actually, one of my favorite characters, Man Mountain Marco, has been eaten by a dragon and returned. So it is weird, it is canonical, and it's also part of the larger stories that they're spinning right now with the coming of Shang-Chi and the Mandarin and things. There's a lot of layers in this, and so the idea that Loki finds that he is excreted out in the other side of the void after being devoured by Alioth might not be. It would be surprising, but might not be the weirdest thing I've ever heard with these characters. Right.
But regardless, they tore a hole in it. So I mean, I think
Yeah. Well, and the whole thing is that they do manage to enchant Alioth, which opens the gate, and they see what looks a lot like Doctor Doom's castle. A lot of the traditional people say that looks a lot like Doctor Doom's castle, with a little glowing ring at the top. Which, and given the idea that there is the suggestion that both Doctor Doom and Reed Richards are ancestors of the Nathaniel Richards who becomes Kang, that's a possibility too. Though again, given that in Black Widow we again see this reference to the Young Avengers, which also, because we get the reference to Hawkeye at the end of Black Widow, we got the reference to Patriot Elijah Bradley in Falcon and Winter Soldier. It makes me want, and of course we got Wicked and Speed in WandaVision. It makes me wonder if we might end up with a young Kang, Iron Lad, at the end of this. Like, yes, maybe the older Kang will show up in Quantumania, but here we might get to meet young Kang as the youthful Kang the Conqueror, who is also trying to break free from his destiny. And maybe that's why he created the TVA, because he wants to thwart Kang the Conqueror's destiny, which might explain why we see all the Kang references, because he does not want to become Kang the Conqueror. He realized the only way he can do that is to prevent the other Kang's timelines from existing. That's why he steals the stuff from Ramatut. That's why he steals the stuff from Kang when he buys Avengers Tower. So my money right now, I'm thinking maybe Iron Lad's a real possibility as the actual big bad, because it ties into Young Avengers. And again, well, actually wasn't actually, no, I think he was actually in the Runaways, but either way, it comes to this idea of something new to introduce that's not quite what we were expecting, but also builds out more for this universe and what we're going to be seeing next. So either that, or we see the Countessa recruiting, Kid Loki or Tom Hiddleston saying, we could really use a god.
Yeah. They should, if Classic Loki's alive, he would make a great spy.
Oh, yeah. Well, he would be great in anything. I mean, honestly, he's a great actor. He's a great character.
And he brought a whole lot to a small role.
Which is the mark of a good actor. I mean, and that's what they say, and that's what you want as an actor, is the actor who has the small role that then people say, I don't think we could do this show without this character. And I think that's where a lot of people are with Classic Loki. Yeah. Is like, I need more Classic Loki. I need to see this character again. I need to know he's out. As much as people wanted to see Tom Hiddleston again, I think now everyone's like, yeah, and bring that guy back too.
Yeah.
And to me, and I've suggested this before, that maybe if we do get a merging of things, that maybe we get this idea that as Lokis go forward, there's just an infinite variety of Lokis. So they don't always have to have the same face, which is cheaper. You can throw in a kid Loki, a lady Loki, an old man Loki.
You can have an Eric Bana Hulk.
Exactly. Well, you can have an Eric Bana Loki. And like that Loki Hulk that we saw.
Indeed.
Loki Hulk smash.
All bets are off.
Yeah, well, that's the idea, and that's what you want. That's what you want from this.
What do you think Mobius is going to do when he gets back to the TVA?
Well, he's going to burn the place to the ground, or find out that what he thinks is the right choice is the wrong choice. Because that's really where it gets to. Is like everyone has this plan, but the problem with plans is they always gang anon. They always go wrong, and you can't have a plan that moves forward flawlessly, because if you did, the villains would always win, because they always have a plan, but they always fail because there are things they don't really know. Anytime you have limited information and are making assumptions and presumptions, the odds of one of those presumptions being wrong basically becomes exponentially greater.
Compounds. Yeah,
it compounds. And that's the idea. So right now he's going back with this idea that oh, the TVA is this, and it is all bad. But, when you consider that, well, but didn't you spend your whole life thinking it was all good?
Right,
and
but
maybe the answer.
I don't think he necessarily has to think of it as all bad, but simply the fact that it was all a lie, that is not as what he was told.
Mm-hmm.
He's sort of like, I think, earned a right to a little bit of flippantness and say, I don't care. It's like, what you did to me was wrong. Whatever else you're doing is right or whatever, but what you did to me was wrong. So, and what you did to all of us collectively was wrong.
Yeah, or it's going to be this statement that you really don't know what you are.
Fair enough.
Yes, you're a variant, but being a variant isn't what you think being a variant is. And it's even like this idea that your timeline dies. That was the problem, is that when you do this, the entire timeline died.
Yeah,
and that's why it had to be stopped.
Like he did with Loki, where he showed him the other lives.
Yeah.
So maybe they're like, oh yeah, you want to go back to, you like jet skis so much? Yeah, look at this. You were eaten by a shark.
Exactly.
Like
you had 10 minutes on that jet ski, and you got eaten by a shark. And that's what. And it's like, oh man, no, it's not even that you got eaten by a shark because you went on a jet ski. It's like, no, you went left instead of right. That got you eaten by the shark, and that's what kept you from accomplishing what you needed to do in life. We took you out of that so you could work for us. You have a life.
And do some good.
And that's the idea, is you actually still have a life. You're out there. You're living your life. If we put you back, all you're going to do is try to take someone else's life. You're going to take that guy who rides a jet ski every day, and you're going to have to kill him to take your life back because you were the one that made the wrong choice and died.
I'm sure, although I'm sure if you flip through the pages enough, you'll find one version where the guy's like, man, I hate this. I hate my life. And you're like, yeah, you ungrateful, come here over here. You want to come be a spy and go and travel dimensions? Yeah. He's like, all right, cool. Let's trade places. And I'm sure he could find one of those.
But maybe that's who Mobius was the whole time too. It's like it comes out that no, actually, this is exactly what you wanted. That's what made you the variant, is you didn't want to be happy. Like when I think it's C-15. I keep on getting B-20 and C-15 mixed up. This is the problem with letter names. It's very hard to keep them all tracked. But when she says, "I looked happy," it's like, yeah, you looked happy. It is just this idea that everyone is working on limited knowledge. And they're making very big choices based on very minimal information. And that is always very dangerous. When you're going to say, I'm going to burn down the TVA based on this small bit of personal information that offends me, but have I considered the universe? And when you are the TVA and you are arguably an agency meant to consider the universe, what is the effect of what you're about to do? And, and likewise, that idea that, the universe has to continue is the argument for every evil organization that continues,
I think there's also something to be said for, like, the game is afoot. Like, you're in the mid-game now, you know what I mean? You have to, it's sink or swim. You're being attacked. All right, we are in the fight now, so you got to act, and you got to pick a lane and ride it,
Mm-hmm. Well, exactly. And, I don't think there's an easy answer.
Yeah.
I think the difficult answer is there is not an easy answer.
Right, and there's no real answer. It's just whoever wins, and that'll be. So.
Yeah. Well, or there's like a real problem if there isn't a TVA. And that's
right. But even if that is a problem, it will sort itself out, and the universe will learn to grow into its new patterns without the constraint of this forced evolution, And it'll turn into whatever it's supposed to.
Well, yeah, but that's what that's what the dinosaurs said when they said, "Don't worry about the comet. Life will evolve. Yeah. Life will find a way."
Exactly, and aren't we glad that comet hit?
How many ankylosaurs had to die? And if
I understand, but I'm glad they died because I'm here.
Well, exactly. But you know what? Maybe it's what's the old saying? What is natural for the spider is monstrous to the fly.
Exactly.
It's it's all about your perspective. And
Right,
if your perspective
and right
is,
now we're in charge of that, and we can preserve our perspective. Let's do that, man.
yes, and that is, but then again, that is arguably exactly what the TVA is doing. They're preserving their selected perspective,
right? And now somebody else
outside
is
of the
about to get
chaos
to it,
of
and
the
that's what I
universe.
mean. That's all it is. It doesn't really matter. In the end, the universe will work itself out the way it's going to. So do what you got to do.
Yeah, well,
Fight your fight.
I mean, that's the idea. That is arguably what he's going to do. But like I said, there could be downstream consequences
Mm-hmm.
that they haven't considered, because there's always a downstream consequence.
And I think they're already living through them. So it's like, to me, it just feels like you're in the fray. You just go.
Well, yeah, and
That's where they're in. They're in the fray, and they're like, "Oh my god, a dragon almost ate me. I gotta punch back, right?"
Well, well, actually, no, you can't punch back. You have to ensorcel. You have to enchant.
Metaphorically speaking, you have to offer something,
Yeah.
that might damage the opposition.
Yeah, and you have to get through it, and it's a question. It's a question, and it's going to be a question. We might get an answer tomorrow, or we'll just get more questions. Maybe we'll say, tune in for season 2 of Loki.
No, questions are good. I like questions. Questions are fun.
We may get, classic Loki. Croaky will return in Loki season 2.
Hey, watch your hands.
Watch your hands. Oh, there are so many Croaky memes out there right now. Yeah, but he's beloved. It's like,
Yeah.
and you want it. That the Croaky story has to somehow relate to the Throg story, because we do get Throg in here too. The Throg is trapped in the void, which is kind of sad.
Hey, what kind of Thor is he if he's trapped in a tiny little glass vial?
Well, he was kind of trapped in a glass vial in Avengers too. Remember when he falls to Earth? And they put him in the Hulk cage.
Thor. I don't remember Frog Thor in
no Thor. Thor.
Oh, gotcha.
In Thor, he gets Loki tricks him into the cell that they made for the Hulk,
right?
And then they drop him out of the helicarrier, and he's just stuck there. Eventually it cracks and he gets out. But the argument is that he's stuck there. He'd just be bouncing off the walls like Throg. But I gotta imagine, like I said, that
it must be a high-tech little glass vial.
Yeah, well, it's just, and it's buried under stuff in the void, so who knows? Yeah, and it could be like some kind of weird collector glass that, like, yes, this is what the collector put him in after turning him into a frog, because he needed all the gods. Or he's from a universe where Loki's an alligator and Thor's a frog, and they're just
right. Imagine they show us like some sort of weird world where there were no humans. And the Marvel, archetypes had to play out across, populations of different animals. And
you mean sort of like the Peter Porker universe,
right? But like a world, an Earth without humans, where all these characters are expressed through different animals, and it's
that is the Peter Porker. That's called the Larval universe. It's
I thought that was the cartoon universe. The Peter Porker was like
but they're all some kind of animal. It's a funny animal.
No, but I don't mean like cartoons. I mean like a real world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they do have that one too. And I can't remember what they called it. I think it was like a variation of the Larval universe, but they were all like hyper realistic animal beings. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they have them. That's
like a Wolverine. That's a Wolverine.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly that kind of thing, and it is that does exist. They have created all these things because
Imagine like a gorilla Hulk.
There's a gorilla Captain America. In the Marvel universe, he's Bruce Bunny and then becomes Bunny Hulk.
Okay.
And there is a Hulk in the Ape universe, but I can't remember what he becomes.
I mean, that sounds like an impressive specimen. Imagine, the musculature of a silverback hulked.
Yes, well, exactly.
That would be fun.
That is the idea. And they have those all over the place in the... there's a universe that someone has thought of it and someone has done it, and it's been pretty awesome.
Yeah.
At least that's one argument for it. I like them. Oh. Any final thoughts on tonight's penultimate episode, Maz?
No, I thought it was a great episode. The action sequences were really fun. The CGI was great, and the relationship between the Lokis were awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, I can't either. And, it's an interesting thing. Actually, I just remembered this. Someone made the point that, Loki's not really cold because frost giants can't get cold. But they actually make the point that the blanket he has is just a tablecloth. That it's literally just a security blanket. It's not actually a blanket to keep him warm. It's just meant to wrap himself in. So,
Yeah.
it's a blanket in the sense that it wraps him, but it doesn't actually do anything against the cold because he's a Loki. He's a frost giant. He doesn't get cold.
Right.
And arguably so is Sylvie. Sylvie is also a frost giant because she is Sylvie Laufey's daughter.
Yeah, and when it's hot, I still have to have like a sheet or something just to have like a mimic of stuff. It's there, it
You want to be wrapped.
Yeah,
you want to be cuddled. So
yeah,
that's nice. And I think that's the final thought. Is like we all want to be cuddled.
Mm.
We all want to just wrap ourselves in a cloak of Loki and a cloak of the
Loki.
A cloaky. We all want to be wrapped in a cloaky. And if we get wrapped in a cloaky, we're comfortable because we're in our happy space.
Right.
And it doesn't matter the version of Loki. It doesn't matter if there's a smoke monster trying to eat us. We've got our cloaky and we're in a happy place. All right. Maz, how can people find you?
Oh, they can email me at mazmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Maz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way, where mothers and fathers once did at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. Of course, follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet. Something, eventually. Legends of Tomorrow is still on, so that's cool. Keep on forgetting to watch it, but, what are you going to do? At Charlie Esser. That's CharlieESSER. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Ding.
Thank you, Maz.
Yep.
You've listened to another episode and have learned something or nothing. But in the end, all we can say is enough said.